Good evening, everybody. It is 7:35 p.m. on November the 5th, and I will call to order the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners for this evening. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will do the honors. Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on to item number 2, the roll call. Manager Elliott, would you kindly call the roll?
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Areman.
Here.
Commissioner Brockington.
Here.
Commissioner Cherico.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner Norris.
Here.
Commissioner Rappaport.
Here.
And Commissioner Ziegman-Feld.
Here.
All right, everyone's present.
Thank you, Manager Elliott. Good evening, everybody. Item number 3, public comment on agenda items. There really is just one agenda item for this meeting. It is the budget message and financial plan for 2026. So if anyone has any comments on that item, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized for 3 minutes. Okay. Going once, twice. Okay, we're going to close public comment on the agenda items, move on to number 4, which is the President's budget message, presentation of the budget message and financial plan for 2026 in accordance with Section 1205 of the Home Rule Charter. And I'll get started. Good evening, Township residents, Township staff, my fellow board members. As President of the Cheltenham Township Board of Commissioners, tonight I have the privilege and the responsibility to present to you the Township's budget and financial plan for 2026, as stipulated by Cheltenham Township's Home Rule Charter. This budget represents countless hours of work by Township staff and commissioners over many months. Following a number of internal meetings with staff led by Township Manager Allison Elliott and Director of Fiscal Affairs Janice Salerno, the board met over the course of 3 public budget workshop presentations in recent weeks and will continue to fine-tune this budget until a preliminary budget is formally adopted on November 19th. That preliminary budget will then be released for public review the following week, available on the Township's website, www.cheltenhampa.gov/budget. And written comments and feedback on the budget can be emailed to a number of places, manager@cheltenhampa.gov, certainly to your local commissioner. And those comments could also be presented in person or via Zoom at the upcoming public meetings and ultimately at the public budget hearing, which is set to take place on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Now, as many of you know, in the spirit of transparency this year, the Board of Commissioners hosted an additional special public budget meeting on October 15th, 2025 to discuss the, quote, state of the township. And we did that because of the critically important budget challenges that Cheltenham faces in the coming years and the impact of those challenges on our residents. This budget forecasting that was presented at the State of the Township was led by Ms. Salerno and Manager Elliott and is invaluable in helping the Township understand the impact of its fiscal decisions. If you missed that meeting, I encourage you to watch the video of the Township's on the Township's YouTube channel, and you can find a link to the video and the presentation on the Township's budget website. Again, cheltenhampa.gov/budget. As part of the State of the Township presentation, Ms. Salerno presented 3 scenarios representing various combinations of tax increases, capital expenditure adjustments, and service efficiencies, with some scenarios including double-digit tax increases and others incorporating more severe service and capital cost reductions. Each scenario included borrowing to facilitate essential capital projects and necessary facility improvements, and each scenario was laser focused on addressing our ongoing structural deficit. We also are looking to preserve our fund balance at a level which is prudent and puts us in a good posture for both borrowing, and in the event of emergencies like sinkholes, bridge failures, and the like. While not being but at the same time, we didn't want to be overly conservative to the point where we're unnecessarily booking deficits. Now, following the State of the Township presentation, the Board of Commissioners challenged staff to explore deeper expenditure cuts this year in order to bring the 2026 tax increase to a more modest single-digit figure. Now, while making tax cuts is not easy, we're pleased to report that the team dug deep and made enough strategic expenditure cuts to the 2026 budget in order to reach the goal of a single-digit increase. Now, expenditure reductions made in the 2026 budget can have an impact on township operations, but I am confident that our staff and those we contribute funds to will do everything in their power to continue providing an excellent service to our residents at the level that they expect and deserve. Now, some of those budget cuts that were implemented to reduce the tax increase to single digits include not replacing certain positions that have been lost to attrition, delaying or eliminating the hiring of additional staff to improve operations, restructuring some positions. It includes a $100,000 reduction in the annual allocation to the library, though our commitment to the system remains strong at $1.7 million this coming year. It includes reducing some contracted and professional services expenses across all departments and reducing capital purchases of some vehicles and equipment. And the work to be efficient and more strategic in our expenditures continues beyond 2026, and the work towards further reducing projected tax increases in future years. The township pledges to evaluate additional operating modifications as we go through 2026 and beyond, such as restructuring employee resources, reviewing healthcare strategies, assessing capital priorities, and assessing services and operations to improve efficiency. As we prepared for the coming year's budget, we spent a considerable amount of time analyzing one of our largest expenditures, our health insurance, employee health insurance, which is projected to cost the township an anticipated $10.7 million in 2026. Having recently returned to a pooled risk model of health insurance, the township experienced a cost increase of 7.7% in its health insurance rates for 2026, which is less than the anticipated 8.5% increase. Additionally, Cheltenham will be able to utilize and take advantage of the rate stabilization funds as part of the insurance plan starting in 2027, which will further help manage future cost increases. This is an area where we continue to focus by absolute necessity for active, retired, and future employees. Township property, casualty, surety, and workers' compensation costs remained relatively flat in 2026. Workers' comp claims are lowering, and we hope to continue this trend thanks to the efforts of our staff following the implementation of a township safety committee in 2022. Public safety is another one of our core and vital community services. Our police department, EMS, and fire companies have been working with us to recruit and support police officers, paramedics, and volunteer firefighters. Our 2026 budget includes a $30,000 increase in funding to each of our 4 fire companies to help cover the costs associated with recruitment and retention of paid and volunteer firefighting personnel. On a related note, I continue to encourage all high school and college students and recent graduates in and around our community to look at careers as police officers or paramedics, and also explore volunteering opportunities with one of our fire companies or with our EMS services, Emergency Medical Services Corps. These are excellent opportunities to build leadership skills, serve our community, and make a difference in people's lives. Also, if you have not in the past, I also highly encourage everyone to support our volunteer fire companies with a donation of time or money, and consider a subscription to our EMS program. That program allows residents for $100 or less a year to subscribe, become a member, and support EMS, but at the same time avoid unnecessary expenses such as insurance deductibles and copay obligations when you call an ambulance. Our goal in budget preparations is to continually seek to improve operational efficiencies to the greatest extent possible, so that the impact of these budget cuts is minimal on our taxpayers. In that vein, I'd like to highlight some of the changes the township has implemented over the past few years to improve efficiency and transparency of operations, both internally and with our residents. Since 2020, the township has enacted the following processes and technological improvements, among others, to help manage its costs. We integrated additional technology for Rec Desk to better manage recreation program registrations, participation, and communication. We've updated the township website to improve appearances, navigability, access to information, and the ability to report concerns. We've utilized Zoom, YouTube, and other social media platforms to share meetings and other information with the public. And we've implemented a human resources information system, HRIS, and outsourced payroll to better manage employee benefits, recruiting, time and attendance controls, and payroll, which formerly had been all paper-based. Now it's electronic. And we've also implemented, as many of you know, OpenGov, which is an enterprise resource planning software which streamlines communication between departments with constituents and enables us to better manage valuable municipal assets while allowing us to reduce staffing by up to 2 full-time positions. While township staff and commissioners are focused on evaluating and creating cost-effective operations and services for the community, we're also hard at work creating programs and spaces that make Cheltenham a great place to live, work, and play. As many of you have experienced firsthand, our Parks and Rec team has been hard at work over the past 18 months, creating new recreation programs and special events while reimagining some of our old favorites in order to bring our neighbors together and highlight what is so great about our community. If you haven't been to our events recently, I encourage you to participate in the upcoming events for 2026, particularly where we'll be celebrating America's 250th birthday with special events each month in partnership with some of our beloved community organizations. Now, with that, I'd like to just get into a little more detail about the budget. I'll start with a budget summary. So in terms of specifics for our 2026 budget, Cheltenham's 2026 budget across all funds is $68.3 million and includes $48.4 million in general fund operating budget, $14.5 million in capital budget, which is funded by $4.5 million in grant funding, plus anticipated borrowing from the bond market, which is intended to make funds available to cover remaining ongoing capital costs and to implement some of our facilities improvements. The budget includes $1.1 million in state liquid fuels and $1.9 million in Stormwater Enterprise Fund, plus an additional $2.4 in proposed capital investments under that fund. To balance the 2026 operating budget, the board will be proposing the following: utilizing $310,000 in available general fund reserves, which will leave our reserve fund balance at $11.8 million, which is the equivalent of about 24% of operating budget. And we will also be implementing a 9% real estate tax increase, which equates to approximately $128 increase for the year, or an additional $10.67 on a monthly mortgage bill for the average residential home. It's important to remember in this regard that our township taxes only apply to about 15% of your overall tax bill. So a 9% increase is only 9% on the township's 15% share, not 9% of your total tax bill. In terms of revenues, the general fund revenues in 2026 are budgeted to be 1.8 million more than that which was projected for 2025, mainly due to the proposed 9% tax increase, which will generate an additional $1.9 million in revenue. Permitting fees are expected to be strong between 2026 and 2029, as we anticipate the Melrose Country Club development, Ashland Apartments development, Curlin Farms, and Fox Lane Home projects to start construction sometime in 26 and 27. The additional tax revenue generated from these projects has been calculated in future revenue projections. As in past years, township staff will be evaluating its fee schedule to ensure that its fees are appropriate and cover the costs of providing services to our residents. New fees will be presented to the Board of Commissioners in December, along with our budget. The township usually budgets for flat or conservative increases in revenues from our Act 511 taxes, which are earned income, business privilege, mercantile, and local services taxes, and deed transfers as well. However, this year we're budgeting more aggressively for 2026. Staff has reviewed revenue projections from past years, and we're confident that the more aggressive projections can be met. I'll note that tax reassessments continue to be a concern for the township. The township and the school district continue to work together with legal representatives to advocate for fair assessments. The current tax assessments have created challenges for taxing bodies and property owners as a result, the township has had to accommodate some lower assessments and refunds in its budget, particularly for some of our larger property owners. In terms of our debt position, in the past, Cheltenham consistently issued bonds of between 3 and 10 million, approximately every 2 or 3 years, to cover its capital expenses. The last bond issuance was for $10 million in 2018. The township currently has 5 open bonds with an estimated balance at the end of 2025. The estimated balance is $15.3 million and an annual debt payment of a little more than $1 million. As we've been discussing over the past few years, the township needs to make major investments in its facilities and infrastructure. Knowing that these costs are on the horizon, township staff and commissioners have been working to put the township in a strong financial position to borrow funds. The township has been working to achieve and maintain a fund balance close to 25%, as Ms. Salerno has pointed out in previous meetings, close to 25% of its operating costs, or about 3 months of expenses, to facilitate a strong bond rating and cover emergencies that may occur. We're also working to reduce our reliance on bonds to fund regular capital expenses, funding things such as vehicle and equipment purchases through transfers from our operating fund rather than borrowing, so that bond revenue can be utilized for larger single projects such as bridge replacements and facilities renovations. In 2025, the township retired its $1.3 million loan for the project that upgraded all street lights and traffic signal lights to LED in 2017, thus reducing the township's annual debt payment of more than $240,000 to zero in 2026. The township plans to borrow $35 million to fund its capital projects over the next 3 years, and will be taking disbursements of $15 million in 2026, $15 million in 2027, and $5 million in 2028, adding approximately $2 million to the township's annual debt payment by the end of 2028. The township has been working with its financial advisors and staff to prepare for the bond issuance in early 2026. Some of the projects that will be funded by this borrowing include continued renovation of the Lamont Community Center, which is anticipated to be reopened in 2027, completion of the Tookaney Creek Trail Phase 3B and future trail extensions, improvements to the Public Works facility, improvements to Roland Community Center, Curtis Hall, and Arboretum and other community facilities, several bridge replacements, as well as traffic calming and streetscape improvements projects, and traffic signal and intersection upgrades at 10 intersections across the township. I'll also note that all of the above projects will be partially funded by grants or will be considered pending receipt of grant funding. With respect to our capital fund, the township's $14.5 million capital program for 2026 includes most notably the $7 million renovation for the Lamont Community Center, which was the first facility to benefit from the township's facilities study and which has received generous funding support through the county's Community Development Block Grant Program, as well as the efforts of U.S. Congresswoman Madeline Dean and many of our commissioners and local partners. The township will also be working on several bridge replacement projects, one on Glenside Avenue, one on Laurel Avenue, and two on Tookaney Creek Parkway, which will also be supported by outside funding. Additional facilities, parks, and traffic signal improvement projects are proposed as well, along with the acquisition of new vehicles and equipment for various departments. Whenever possible, the township seeks funding from state, federal, county, and other sources in order to help stretch our taxpayer dollars. The township currently has 62 active grants in various stages, ranging from pre-application through closeout, totaling more than $53 million, with more than $16 million in awarded funding. A transfer of operating funds to the capital fund is not proposed for 2026 due to the plan to borrow the $35 million. However, the township does plan to begin incremental contributions to the capital fund beginning in 2027 so that it can plan to self-fund its regular capital costs, as I previously described. Our Stormwater Enterprise Fund is a separate fund that is primarily funded by a fee paid by all properties that have impervious surface within the township. With a projected $3.9 million in revenues, $1.9 million will fund personnel and operating costs, such as operating leaf collections and the Waverly Road compost facility, as well as maintaining the Brookdale pump station in Glenside, and repairing stormwater infrastructure. The township will also increase efforts to manage stormwater improvements and expand its riparian buffer planting and maintenance programs. In 2025, the team was hard at work completing major stormwater projects at Renninger Park, Curtis Arboretum, Meeting House Road, and nearly 800 feet of stream bank restoration work at 3 locations along Tookaney Creek. In 2026, they will continue their efforts, proposing $2.4 million in capital expenses to fund 11 major stormwater improvement projects through various stages, including concept planning, submitting grant applications, design and permitting, as well as construction. With respect to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection's flood control project along the Tookaney Creek near Glenside Avenue and Rice's Mills Road, the township hopes to complete acquisition of the remaining properties required for the project and complete demolition of the structures while working with DEP to ensure that project is on track for construction. Switching to liquid fuels, the township's liquid fuels budget is derived from funds from the state gas tax, utilizing a formula that is based on population and miles of township-owned roads. It can be used to support construction, maintenance, and repair of public streets and bridges. Cheltenham generally uses these liquid fuel funding to finance snow removal, electricity for streetlights and traffic signals, the cost of purchasing related equipment, repairs to road infrastructure, and the annual milling and paving program, which generally supports the paving of between 2 and 2.5 miles of township roads each year. In 2026, the township anticipates revenues of $1.05 million and proposes expenditures amounting to about $1.07 million, which include paving and restriping Tookaney Creek Parkway between Cheltenham Avenue and the Melrose Country Club property, as well as enhancing pavement markings throughout the township. Now, with that said, the commissioner, in terms of next steps, the commissioners will continue to work with staff to fine-tune our budget projections between now and adoption of the preliminary budget in 2 weeks. The following are important dates in our budget process going forward. On November 12th at 8 p.m., the Finance Committee will review the proposed budget and make a recommendation regarding adoption of a preliminary budget. The following week, on Wednesday, November 19th at 7:30 p.m., the Board of Commissioners is scheduled to adopt the preliminary operating and capital budgets for 2026. The preliminary budget will then be made available to the public for inspection no later than November 26th on the township's website. And as I mentioned, it's cheltenhammpa.gov/budget. The following month, on Wednesday, December 10th at 8 p.m., the Finance Committee will further review and discuss the budget and make a recommendation for adoption of the final budget. And then finally, on Wednesday, December 17th at 7:30 p.m., at our final board meeting for the year, the Board of Commissioners will hear public comment on the budget before it considers adoption of the final budget. All these meetings are open to the public and will be conducted via Zoom, with the November 19th and December 17th meetings also being held in person at Curtis Hall. Login information for all meetings will be made available on each meeting's agenda and posted on the township's website. All public input is welcome. As I mentioned, there are various ways to provide input, including directly emailing the Board of Commissioners. And as always, comments, questions, and most importantly, suggestions are welcome and can be shared at any time. If you have business with the Public Works and Building and Zoning Committees tonight, please stay tuned. They will immediately follow on Zoom after this meeting. I wish you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving and a healthy holiday season. I encourage you to please support your local businesses and community members. They are integral to our Cheltenham community, and I thank you all for your attention to this evening's annual budget message. Thank you. Save your applause. Just kidding. Thank you. With that, I will move to, I appreciate everyone's indulgence. I'll move to item number 5, which is adjournment, and I will move to adjourn this evening's special meeting of the Board of Commissioners. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye.